Okay.
Hi, Febby. Welcome to my YouTube channel.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh, so, as you know, my YouTube channel is about friendship after immigration. And you immigrated to Canada like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So, tell us about your background, when you moved, and what's your story?
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks for having me. Very happy to be here. Yeah, so a little bit about myself. To your point, I moved to Canada close to 5 years ago. I actually moved here from Singapore. Originally, I was born in Jakarta, Indonesia. So my heritage is Chinese, just a little bit about that. And I think I'm like the third generation. And I don't know if a lot of people know about this, but we actually have a lot of Chinese people who
Mhm.
immigrated to Indonesia like way back when. And in total, I think there's only like 3% of the total
Mhm.
population
Wow.
in Indonesia that's Chinese. But that's my heritage. And then a little bit of the story of how I immigrated to Canada. I moved here as a student and I moved here to pursue my graduate degree. So I went to the U of A in Edmonton, and the rest is history.
You actually went to college, right? How was, I think that's a smooth transition. Do you agree that when you move to another country and you start from going to college, this transition is a little bit smooth? Like you get to know people, you get to know culture, and you get to know a lot of friends, and you make friends with a lot of people. So, how was this transition for you?
That's a good question. I think I don't know if I would say the transition is a bit smooth as compared to, say, other pathways. I mean, I've moved for work before, and then when I moved to Canada, I moved for school. I feel like, yes, in a way, it's smoother in terms of integrating into the society, which I think what you were alluding to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I feel like the transition was still pretty bumpy
So
just because
why? Why is that?
yeah, it's
That's the biggest mystery of, immigration puzzle.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
I think first of all, just just trying to assimilate really quickly into the
Yeah.
culture. I think when I remember when I was in school, I think there wasn't any warm up, if you will. Like
Yeah.
from day one, you have to start working with people from different cultures, including the locals and me, I think at that time, without really knowing how things work here, I
Yeah.
felt like I lacked the deep cultural awareness at that time. And
Yeah.
also just trying to learn how the society operates, what's culturally acceptable versus what's not. So I will say in general, the transition was pretty bumpy from that perspective.
Yeah.
And I think over time, then I kind of learned how to assimilate and integrate better to the society. But
So
I'm
we
pretty
need that,
similar. Yeah.
that tips and tricks,
Yeah.
right? So how did you, smooth out all those bumps? But I have a question. Like, when you're at university, you don't have time to hang out and socialize because, you have a lot of assignments, homework, and then it's serious, right? You want to graduate, you want to go to work, and you don't have time, right?
Mhm.
So did you find a lot of time to socialize, hang out with other people, or no, it was so hectic and you didn't have time. You just wanted to meet the deadlines?
Yeah. So funny enough, I think it was because I was in the MBA program, and I think the MBA program has this reputation of work hard, play hard kind of
Yeah,
culture, which
right.
I would agree with. I think
Okay.
if people, yeah, for people who go to business school, a lot of them would agree that, yeah, like the culture is like, yeah, you have a lot of assignments and it's all serious stuff to your point. But at the same time, I think the networking culture is also really huge when you go to business school. So that's what I found as well when I was in school. It's like, yes, you got to do your assignment,
Yeah.
you got to make sure that you got your stuff together. But at the same time, I think there was a lot of opportunity to socialize as well.
Right. That's a good point because in
Yeah.
your major, not only your assignment is important, but also networking is the key, right?
Exactly.
And it's not about just your grades and scores, it's about your network. So how did you boost or expand your network?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me, the key was to be intentional about it. Obviously, with the environment that the program provides, you could, or for me, for my situation, I was able to network not only with my classmates, but also people outside of my cohort or other people who are in the program. I think that was also very helpful just because the MBA program consists of people from like all walks of life, all different professional backgrounds. And so like that kind of helps me in that sense, but also to be intentional to, I will say, play your student card. I think that's what I did. Like just played my student card and be like, oh, I am a student at this university. I'm currently in this program. I'm exploring like what it's like to be working in this field, or maybe just life in Canada in general, and just go from there. I think that was how I approached it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You mentioned about being intentional. That is very important, essential, because sometimes, just time passes by and we realize that we haven't networked as we wanted to or as we should, right?
Yeah.
And we just keep regretting. But for networking, it needs a lot of integration and assimilation, as you mentioned, which leads to this point where language barrier plays an important role, or cultural differences. So this is the biggest fear of immigrants, where English is not their first language. So how did you overcome your fears, or how did you, smooth out those bumps?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm going to answer this question, I think, in two parts. I think for me personally, before I moved to Canada, English is a language that I'd spoken or I'd started using on a daily basis when I was living in Singapore, because that's one of the major languages there. Of course, not to the same extent, because Singapore has its own dialects and its way of speaking English that's famously known as Singlish. So it's like same,
I know.
but different.
We have that too. Right?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think that's that. So I feel like I sort of had the foundation, if you will. It wasn't something that's totally new to me to communicate in a language that's not my native language on a daily basis. However, I admit that I do still have that fear. And I think that I will say that feeling, I think sort of initially, I think that kind of held me back from expressing myself, or maybe just, I wouldn't say,
you have a little bit of reservations, like, should I say this? Should I do this? Should I not?
Yeah, you
Does
tend
it
to
seem
overthink.
awkward? Not, yeah.
Exactly. Like, plus, I think substantiated by the lack of cultural awareness. Like, I wasn't sure, for example, okay, I know how to express this, but is this culturally appropriate? Is this acceptable? Right. So I think like there's just a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how your experience is, and I'd love to learn more. But yeah, I think it's not about just speaking the language, I feel like, but it's also about understanding
I have this problem too. Like when I see someone for the first time, I don't know, should I hug? Because I'm a hugger, right?
Oh, cute.
So I mean, like, you just hug, like, hey, you bump into each other, something like that. But I don't know, should I, shake hands? Should I hug? Should I not? Should I, and the situation is like, I'm always like, I don't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to hug someone and someone's like, whoa, right? You don't want that embarrassment, for sure. And also, like, you don't know if you invite people for coffee is awkward or not. Is it too much or not? Especially with today's technology, people are a little bit more shy and reserved, and they want their own space, right? They're like,
I would agree with that.
When you go to people and start talking, you seem a little bit, I don't know, awkward and weird in a sense.
Yeah.
But I think part of the journey is about being vulnerable, about being embarrassed, about feeling awkward, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the part of a journey. And you feel sometimes embarrassed for sure because you don't know, right? But that's how you learn. That's how you grow, right?
Yeah.
Out of that experience.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
would yeah.
So, you said that in your job or major, you needed that network. But, again, like there are some personality types that cannot, step out of their comfort zone. They're more introverts and, they can't go and just talk to people. However, they know it's essential. However, they know it's needed, but they don't see it in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't know. I have always been an extrovert, right? I have always been
Very
like,
cool.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I actually seemed like as I get older, I become a little bit more introverted or more cautious or more, more reserved. But I mean, I haven't been that extroverted, but in order to be able to talk to people, you need to be a little bit vulnerable and open-minded, and expect a lot of or different response, or like what is that? Different attitude, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have to accept that, but
Right.
also it's important for your network for finding a job. So as you said, in your job and your work, you needed to have that network. How did it work for you as an introvert?
That's a good question. I mean, first of all, I feel like being an introvert doesn't really mean that it is not the same as being shy.
Yeah.
I think when you are reluctant to come up to people or speak up or put yourself out there, I know sometimes there's a gray area, like people would address that or would label that as, oh, I'm an introvert, that's why I'm going to shy away from networking or from putting myself out there or going up to people. The way I see introverts versus extroverts, and I also have lots of interest in this, so my 2 cents is that I think introverts just tend to recharge by being alone versus extroverts, they tend to recharge by being around people. So I think my strategy is that, to your point, I see it as valuable, but I'm going to be more cognizant or more intentional in terms of how I spend my time and energy. And I think because I know how much bandwidth I have when I interact with people, but that doesn't mean that I am shy when I interact with people, or it doesn't mean that I feel I don't see value in networking or putting myself out there. I do. And that was how I approached my, I guess, my path in building my life here in Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
You had some strategy, right?
Yeah.
You knew how to spend your time. Like, you didn't waste your time being around some people who would drain your energy. Right.
Exactly. And I think like the biggest piece is also, I think I'm, to your point, like being vulnerable, I think is key. And I think like that kind of goes hand in hand with being authentic. I think I always strive to be authentic. And I think obviously with like the introverted side of me, I think I'm more comfortable maybe in one-to-one interactions or maybe in small groups versus like me interacting with like 12 people at the same time. And I think that also kind of ties back to the fact that when you are in a large group, it's really hard to be vulnerable, especially when you meet people for the first time at a networking event. Like you can't really have a meaningful conversation. So I think, just being strategic and really understand like how much bandwidth you have, I think, or for myself, I think that has been really helpful.
So, Febby, in Vancouver, Canada, generally speaking, the Persian community is huge, right? So it is a blessing and a curse at the same time. So it's good because you have your own community. You don't feel like homesick. It's good. It's great. But also, it doesn't give you that opportunity to meet other people from other nationalities, right?
Right.
So if you go to a bank, there is always a Farsi speaking person. If you go to a store, there is again a Farsi speaking person. So everywhere there is a Farsi speaking person. And sometimes you don't have that, opportunity to talk in English and to hang out with other people or to get to know other people. But what about in your culture? I mean, are there a lot of Indonesians or Singaporeans in Canada, and how was it in your experience?
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting question because I'm sure there are some, but I don't know why for me, since I moved abroad 10 years ago, I've never really been intentional in finding people from my home country, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really get involved in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way I approach it is like, I'm just gonna come, and then if I vibe with certain people, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter where they come
The
from.
mindset and attitude is important rather than
Yeah, and I
nationality, right?
have like genuine interest in learning about other nationalities or other like people
Yeah.
from all different backgrounds, or whether it's ethnicities or like nationalities. So
Mm-hmm.
I will say I don't even really have friends from like Southeast Asia, like not necessarily. I think,
Interesting.
yeah, like
Interesting. Yeah.
I do have some good friends. Like my good friends are, some of them are local or people that I met in university, or
Mm-hmm.
also like either Vancouverites or like people who were born here in Canada.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think for me, in other words, I think I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really go out of my way to find a community from where I came from.
Yeah.
So I probably should, honestly, now that you mentioned. But yeah,
now you're like, wait, what? I
it's
don't
not.
have any friend from my own nationality. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a couple, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's just.
But you know what? Honestly, it's easier, right? People get your joke, get your humor, get your vibe, get your culture. You can share the same food. I mean, it's very easy, right, to hang out.
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
From people. I mean, and it's so easy, right? So it's more difficult to hang out with other culture, right? Like you don't know their culture, but actually, I know it depends, and it's not like for everyone for sure. But I'm just saying that it's easier, right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment.
Yeah.
And I think for me as well, I do still keep in touch very, very regularly with my core group from back home,
Mm-hmm.
like my best friend, like a group of friends whom I've been friends with for like the longest time. So I think that sort of helps me, to your point, maybe cure my homesick a little bit, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when it comes to me and my life here in Canada, I just don't really.
Okay. So, but still, you haven't shared your tips, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your tips and tricks. I mean, what are your, what are your tips on how to make friends, how to put yourself out, right? And to get to know new people when you graduate, right? Okay, like you go to college, but then you graduate eventually, you go to work, but there are these stages. But how you mentioned about being intentional. So how you were intentional, how you're still intentional. What do you typically do to make friends, to hang out with other people?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, as I think I will say it's really hard once you're out of school, I will say. And I think that's also why a lot of people, or even myself included, again, going back to my point earlier, to be of being intentional. So one example is to go to an event where people go to make friends.
Yeah, same.
I've attended
I
those
do that
events
too.
before.
Right.
Yeah, like that could be an example. Because I do feel like, once you're out of school, I don't know, I think like a lot of people, their circle is just work and the friends that like their core groups that they already they've known for the longest time.
Yeah.
So I think to make new friends is not easy. I think it doesn't happen organically because I think,
Exactly.
yeah. And I think like there is
Yeah.
like one cultural difference too, I think, when it comes to the Canadian workplace versus like, I don't know, workplace in other places.
Yeah.
You really like, you can make friends, you can make friends at work, have work friends or work besties, but it's not the same. Like, I don't think a lot of people hang out outside of work here.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
really do that either. I
Yeah.
think there's a very clear line between, okay, we are friends at work, we work well together, we collaborate.
But I don't want to hang out after
No,
work with you.
outside of work, no. Like, I got my
Yeah.
own thing to do.
Yeah.
I
I
respect
know you need your own, time, and you're like, you know what, I've spent a lot of time with you.
Exactly.
I'm just gonna go and watch
Yeah.
something by myself. Right. And again, like this is my problem, that if you're in college, you have a lot of things in common, but once you graduate, you don't find a lot of similarities or commonalities after you graduate. So it's very difficult to, again, get back together, and you don't have a lot of things in common again to see each other or to hang out more. And it's like, again, you have to find other people. I mean, I'm talking about a lot of stages in our lives, right? Once like you're single is different. When you get married, again, you want to find people that are in your stage of life. And then if you become parents, again, you want to hang out with other parents, right? But Vancouver is famous for being a little bit standoffish, right? And they are always like, you can't find friends, you can't make friends in Vancouver. People are not willing to hang out with you. So, what is your takeaway on that? I mean, do you find Vancouver very standoffish, or do you find people are approachable, friendly? What do you think?
I think in general, people are polite.
Yeah.
And I think that's a Canadian thing. People are generally polite.
Yes, very polite.
Yeah. I think rather than standoffish, I'll say people are a bit more reserved here.
Yeah.
As compared to, say, people from other cities in Canada. Even like I used to live in Edmonton, and I do see the difference. Or even when I went to Toronto, for example, people are a lot more open or a lot more approachable. But I think a part of it too is a West Coast thing. So I can't really blame them or neither.
So the cliche is true.
I mean, I think maybe in general, it might be true, but I think at an individual level, I think it really goes back to like the person that you're trying to build a friendship with. But maybe in general, the general theme, I will say there is some truth to it. But yeah.
But yeah, there is
some. It's also a West Coast thing. So
yeah, it's a West Coast thing. Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know, but honestly, like I just travel. I traveled to Toronto. I traveled to like New York, Miami, LA. I haven't seen a lot of like difference in terms of people being approachable. I mean, people were approachable or not approachable, but it wasn't like, oh, Vancouver is like they're not approachable at all. No, I mean, when we are living in a building, I mean, a condo, and we kind of like when we see our neighbors, we start chatting, talking, and it's not like, oh, they don't want to talk to others. No, I mean, people can talk. People would hang out at the different venues, and we talk and we hang out, and it's not like, I don't know, I didn't find it very, very true. And I saw it in different places. People are always like friendly or not friendly, kind or not kind, all sort of things. So you said that you tried to participate in a lot of events and to make friends, to meet new people. What else? Like, are you a kind of person who just compliments on someone's outfit and then start chatting, or no, you're not that?
I will, but I mean, I don't see that as a way of making friends. I think it's more like me just trying to spread some kindness.
Yeah, exactly.
And also like just, I think as a human being, we all just need like a little bit of interactions here and there, especially since I work most of the time. So if I see a stranger on the street and I like their outfits, I'll say that.
Yeah, not stranger, but like your neighbor. right?
Yeah, I don't really see my neighbors, so
Okay.
I don't really, yeah. I mean, I will say I do those things, but I don't see that as like a way of making friends, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how about any apps like Meetup, Bumble BFF?
Hmm.
Have you
No,
tried those?
no, not really. I mean, I think when I was in school, yes, I think just because a lot of the activities they posted on meetup.com, to your point, and I think that was before COVID. And then after a while, I think, well, because of COVID as well, I think like my social, I guess, social game just went down as well. Just,
Right.
yeah, COVID
That's
sort of,
not just only for you, I think for everyone. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
fair. So I think that's that. Yeah, I'm familiar with those or I have heard of those platforms before, but no, I'm
Yeah.
not actively using them.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've tried those apps and
Oh,
they
how,
were good.
oh
Yeah,
yeah. What did
they
you
were
like?
good. Bumble BFF can be a little bit awkward and weird, honestly.
Okay.
I mean, oh my God, it's so overwhelming or I don't know, daunting to just get on the app and, talk about yourself, who you are. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
is very difficult to be in that situation, right? To be in that situation where you want to see people, meet people, right? Not
Hmm.
organically, for
Yeah,
sure.
totally.
But it worked out very well for me. I got to know a couple who were so kind and good, and we
Oh,
kind of
really
hang
cool.
out very often. Yeah, just once. I tried once, and I got to meet this couple, and I'm a very good friend of her, and she's like we're kind of like close, and yeah, I mean
Wow,
it
you
worked out.
accomplished your mission.
I mean, I don't know. I was just maybe selective
Hmm.
and but again, like it's a kind of you have to be open to it and be vulnerable to it. I was like, you know what? We go for a sushi night and we have our favorite sushi. We're gonna talk about something. And then if we don't vibe, then we'll say goodbye, right?
Right.
And there's no harm in going out and hanging out and having sushi with others, right?
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it turns out that we had a lot of things in common and we got along, we hung out more often. And then again, you start from somewhere, right?
Hmm. Totally.
And yeah, but I know it is very, difficult to get on the
Mhm.
app and start, talk who you are, what your interests are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you have more tips than I do, though. So you have to share yours. Like, okay, first of all, like get on the app, and then what else? What else do you do?
What else you do? I mean, just try to be open, and I was like, because again, it's weird. Like you just see someone and you're like, hey, what's your name? My name is Sherry. But I'm like, you have to start from somewhere. And you want to have coffee with someone. So you want to have coffee, you go have coffee with someone and have a good chat. And if you don't vibe, then you're like, okay, this girl is not vibing with me. And
Yeah.
then you go and talk to others. But if you talk to like 10 people, the chances are you're going to be friends with at least, I don't know, two or three people, right?
That's
But
true.
if you're home and sitting in front of Netflix, nothing will change, nothing will happen,
Yeah,
right?
true. I'm curious
Yeah.
though. I mean, like when you say, because you say, okay, you're gonna put yourself out there, meet more people. And I think like once you're friends or once you form a new friendship, the
Uh-huh.
the other thing you need to do is to maintain. And I think like that's the hardest part. I don't know. I feel
Exactly.
like for me,
Yeah.
like sometimes it's really hard to, of course, if it's important, you'll prioritize, but I'm curious to hear like
Yeah.
how do you go about it?
Exactly. Because I have also very busy life in, hectic schedule.
Yeah.
And I can just every weekend but that couple also is busy working. So it's not like every single time we have to hang out. It's kind of like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks.
That's not bad.
Yeah. And like every 2 weeks you wanna dine out, you want to go somewhere. So you're like, hey, we are
Yeah.
going to this place. You want to join? And if they're willing to join, then they say yes or not. But I get you. it's very difficult to maintain. If you have like 5, 6 group of people and you want to maintain all those friendships, or yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, exactly.
I get that, right? But I mean, your friends should also be very like open-minded, free, and not like, why didn't you text me? Why did you text me
Yeah,
late?
totally.
Why? Yeah, like I invited you last week and you said no, so I won't invite you anymore. They should understand you, and it should be mutual as long as you understand each other. And I personally don't expect a lot from people or from a friendship. Like it should be perfect. No, I have low expectations. And as long as we are having good conversations and we are vibing, or, after that night, you're like, oh, we enjoyed our night, I am good.
I think that's like super important. But I also feel like, with adult friendships, like, I think it's easier. I don't know if you would agree with this, but I feel like it's easier to make friends when you were younger, because to your point, you're maybe not that particular. You're like,
Definitely.
Okay, whatever.
You have no standards.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Zero standards. You're like, do whatever you want to do. Yeah, I'm cool with it. But in your 30s, you can't do that. Right? You have your standards, you have, your own lifestyle. Then you don't say yes to every invitation.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So that's like a really good point.
Good. So, Febby, that was a very nice conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. No. Yeah. That was great.
It was great. Yeah. So, anything you want to wrap it up? If you want to say anything, we can wrap it up here.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if I was able to share any insights that are practical. I hope I did. I feel like
I extracted the practical tips out of you, so you're good.
Yeah. Okay,
great.
Cool. The reason why I think it's just such a complicated topic, and obviously like it really comes down to each individual, I feel like. And I think you kind of alluded to this as well earlier in the conversation, that some people are not willing to go out of their comfort zone. But I think the first thing that you need to be willing to do when you move somewhere else is to go out of your comfort zone, because it's already an uncomfortable decision to begin with. So I think in order for you to kind of build your life and settling and kind of easing into your new decision, or like your new home, I think you have to be willing to be uncomfortable and also be willing to be open-minded. I think you also mentioned this part, and really like trying to learn and unlearn things as you evolve and go from there.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Excellent summary.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much for being on my YouTube channel. Hope to see you very soon with more tips.
Same. Okay. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Have a good one. Thank you.